In the world of golf, integrity is a huge part of the sport. It's why cheating is treated with the highest level of prejudice by both governing bodies and golfers alike. However, simply having an integrity requirement doesn't mean everyone will adhere to it. As a result, I've compiled a list of professional golfers who've been tossed in the slammer for poor conduct on or off course. Enjoy! Beginning with one of the greatest to ever grace the sport, Tiger Woods. Ask the non-golf fans about the most popular golfer they know, and you'd hear Tiger Woods' name more often than not. He was indeed the face of golf for the longest time, and more than just a man, he was a brand. But when his problems started, they got the best of him. Woods was convicted of driving under the influence, DUI, as recently as 2017. At this point, the veteran golfer seemed incapable of getting things right. He was walking into one scandal after the other. Many feared he was on the path of self-destruction. His vehicle was located by the authorities in Jupiter, Florida, just by the age gate of the road at 3 a.m. Naturally, he failed several sobriety tests and was kept in jail for the night. Woods would later admit to taking quite the spread of prescription medications to help with the pain of recovery following several back surgeries. That sounds like a fairly convenient excuse. Rachel Connor. What's it about Florida and hammered golfers? The year was 2012 and British golfer Rachel Connor had been pulled over in Florida by the cops on suspicions of drunk driving. Next to her was Eddie George, Heisman Trophy winner and ex-NFL star running back. After taking a breathalyzer test, results showed Connor had more alcohol in her system than was legally permissible. As a result, she went to jail for the night. Like Woods, she pleaded guilty to the DUI. Her punishment was 50 hours of community service and 12 months probation. At the time, Connor was active on the Xtra Tour and continued to make appearances well into 2014 regardless of her situation. Artem Nesterov. Artem Nesterov is one of the more complicated characters on this list. Golf was introduced to Russia in 1991 following the downfall of the USSR and communist system. So, the country doesn't exactly have veterans of the sport. Nesterov, though, was one of the few people who picked up golf in Russia. He was quite the athlete in his homeland and rose to the title of Master of Sports, whatever that means. However, in 2007, Nesterov went from a golfer to a criminal after sending his mother to the afterlife by way of decapitation. He confessed to the crime after being rounded up by the police. How did he come to do this to his mother in the first place, you wonder? Well, he had a fight with his wife and went to his mother's to cool off. Jim Thorpe. For 2 years, between 2002 and 2004, Jim Thorpe decided he'd worked hard for his winnings and didn't have to share with Uncle Sam. Unfortunately, the IRS doesn't take kindly to people who don't share. So, he got slapped with charges for owing $1.6 million in taxes to the federal government. Thorpe pleaded guilty to federal tax evasion charges and was thrown in jail for a year, between 2010 and 2011. Upon his release, he was transferred to a halfway house from an Alabama prison camp. When he regained his freedom and returned to the 2011 Champions Tour, he issued a public statement saying, "I apologize to everyone for the mistakes that I made, and I blame no one else but myself." Thorpe was already into his 60s by the time he rejoined the sport, so his winning days were firmly behind him, even on the Champions Tour. But he had nothing to prove anymore. He was a veteran of the event, having won it 13 times in his career between 2000 and 2007. Phil Mickelson. Although Phil Mickelson wasn't technically arrested, he was involved in a high-profile insider trading case as a defendant. U.S. authorities claimed that the golfer was indebted to a certain William Walters, who offered the golfer a hot stock tip sometime in 2012. Mickelson got involved and purchased around $2.4 million worth of shares in a company called Dean Foods. In only a few weeks, he'd raked in a cool $931,000 in profit as the company entered a spin-off venture that shot up its share prices. About 45 years of age at the time, the golfer was named as a relief defendant in the SEC's civil lawsuit. The terms meant, although he technically didn't commit any crimes, he did receive ill-gotten gains due to the illegal actions of others. Angel Cabrera. Sometime in 2021, Angel Cabrera, one of the most prolific veteran golfers from South America, was taken into custody and tried for assaulting his ex-partner, Cecilia Torres Mana. Cabrera, otherwise known as El Pato, the Duck, to golf fans, was picked up by Brazilian Interpol agents in January 2021 on a walk near the Leblon beach in Rio de Janeiro. Some months prior, he had been listed as a fugitive by Argentine authorities after he left for the US to participate in a golf tournament. It wasn't against the law to leave the country. Cabrera was just under investigation and left without due permission. Upon appearing in court, he denied the allegations, but that was only a minuscule amount of the weird things that happened during the proceedings. That deserves an entire video of its own. Anyway, in the face of damning evidence, Cabrera was found guilty and sentenced to 2 years in jail. The judge also ordered mandatory psychological evaluations and treatment for alcohol addiction. He was taken away to begin serving his sentence immediately. El Pato has since regained his freedom and has opened up about how jail might have been good for him. Again, separate video for all of that. Watch out. John Daly. John Daly is renowned for being Tiger Woods' biggest rival. He's had a legendary career so far and is easily one of the best in the sport. However, much like Woods, his career has also been rocked by scandals. By his own admission in his autobiography, Daly admitted to struggling with alcoholism, bad marriages, and a horrible gambling addiction that had cost him $50 to $60 million. Currently, though, he appears to be in a better place, with a stable marriage and a son following in his footsteps. In 2017, he also bagged his first Champions Tour victory. His troubles go back to his early years in golf. He first blew up in popularity by winning the PGA Championship in 1991. A year later, he was in the news for third-degree assault on his then-wife. Rather than sticking to driving balls across a court, he drove his ex-wife into a wall before smashing up the house. He never admitted to these assault charges, though. In 2019, Daly was involved in another run-in with the authorities. He was detained for the night in Winston-Salem, NC, after blacking out due to extreme intoxication at a Hooters restaurant. Although he wasn't charged, he was kept in a jail cell to sleep off the intoxication. Tommy Gainey. Tommy Two Gloves Gainey is as mobster-sounding a name as they come. Given the way he went down, he may have lived up to it. Gainey first achieved national acclaim as a contestant on The Big Break, a show on the Golf Channel. He was on for several reasons and was one of the more likable casts. Eventually, he'd go on to win the PGA Tour and Nationwide Tour. In 2019, the then 44-year-old was arrested alongside 124 other persons in a prostitution sting that the sheriff's office in Polk County, Florida has since dubbed Operation Santa's Naughty List. Gainey was only behind bars for a short time since he was arraigned on a first-degree misdemeanor solicitation charge. He made bail and got out. A month later, he was participating in and winning the opening tournament of the 2020 Korn Ferry Tour season in the Bahamas Great Exuma Classic. Robert Allenby. Robert Allenby just missed the cut at the John Deere Classic in 2016. Deciding there were better uses of his time, he went up to Rock Island, Illinois, and visited a casino. Time blurred by quickly, and he woke up in jail. The golfer had been tossed into the slammers and booked for criminal trespassing and disorderly conduct. His time in jail was short, as he made bond and got out. Before this incident, about a year prior, Allenby woke up disoriented and battered in a Honolulu park in Hawaii shortly after the Sony Open. Although his version of events involved a robbery, assault, and drugging, his caddy cast doubts on the story. Eventually, though, police caught and arrested a man using Allenby's credit cards. So, we'll never know. Either way, these incidents didn't seem to have any bearing on his career, since the Australian went on to become a regular on the PGA Tour for years, even playing for Team International in the President's Cup a good 6 times. The Mysterious Montague. The name, the Mysterious Montague, isn't a figure you can picture in a gentleman's game like golf. Yet, John Montague was very much a golfer. It was a different era in golf. Things were rough and unrefined, and scam artists, hustlers, and raconteurs were part and parcel of the sport. Not because they wiggled their way onto the scene, but because they were just as good as the pros. Montague was a popular figure not just as a golfer in California, but also as a movie star. It was the 1930s, and he got away with playing the most unusual kind of golf, like using a rake, hoe, or shovel instead of traditional clubs. As crazy as that sounds, he won a lot of money. He was never out of the company of movie stars and other celebrities both on and off the golf course. However, that much popularity often came with wardrobes full of skeletons. In 1937, in a move straight out of Scooby-Doo, The mysterious Montague was unmasked not as John Montague but as Laverne Moore. He was subsequently arrested and charged with assault and armed robbery in New York, which led to the death of one. Montague, or Moore, whichever of his pseudonyms appeal to you, was tried and acquitted in the same year. By 2008, the golfer-cum-movie star got his legacy embellished in literature by sports journalist Lee Montville, who published the book The Mysterious Montague, A True Tale of Hollywood, Golf, and Armed Robbery. What a man! Machine Gun Jack McGurn. If you think the mysterious Montague was wild, you're going to be even more stupefied with Machine Gun Jack McGurn. Jack McGurn was a golfer during the Wild West period of golf, at the same time as John Montague. In 1993, the BMW Championship was called the Western Open. At this time, a local professional golfer by the name of Vincent Gebhardy played for the Evergreen Golf Club in Chicago. Gebhardy signed up for the Western Open. Who or what is a Gebhardy? And why does he matter? Well, there was never a Vincent Gebhardy, you see. Like John Montague, Vincent Gebhardy was a cover name for Machine Gun Jack McGurn, who was in fact a monster. Machine Gun Jack McGurn ran with Al Capone's Chicago gang and was a key figure suspect in the St. Valentine's Day massacre. He'd all but gotten away with the disguise until the second round, which he was leading by the way, when he was approached by a suspicious policeman. McGurn agreed to come with after finishing his round. He was allowed to do so, but even after following the policeman, he never got convicted. But he didn't get away with his crimes for long, since he was assassinated 3 years later by unknown killers. Talk about no peace for the wicked. That's the end of the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I'll catch you in the next video.